Everything I wasn't supposed to be in the East Wing after dark. The marble corridors of the Marchetti estate absorbed sound like a tomb, and I'd learned to move through them with the careful silence of someone who understood that attention, in this house, could be fatal. But that night, I heard music. A child's music box, tinny and slightly off-key, coming from behind a door I'd been explicitly told never to open. I should have walked away. Instead, I pushed the door open just enough to see inside. The room was enormous, decorated in shades of cream and gold that seemed designed to make a small person feel even smaller. In the center, surrounded by abandoned toys that looked expensive and untouched, was a little girl in a wheelchair. She couldn't have been more than 7. Her dark hair fell in careful ringlets around a face that held the kind of beauty that came with a price, the Marchetti bloodline written in the sharp angle of her cheekbones, the unusual gray of her eyes. She was alone. Not just alone in the room. Alone in the way that makes a child's shoulders curve inward, that makes them talk to themselves because no one else is listening. The princess lived in a tower, she whispered to the doll in her lap. And nobody came. Something cracked open in my chest. I'd worked at the Marchetti estate for 3 months. I cleaned rooms I was never supposed to enter, washed sheets that sometimes came back with stains I didn't ask about, and collected my envelope of cash every Friday from a man who never looked at my face. I knew the rules. Be invisible, be silent, and never, under any circumstances, interact with the family. But I also knew what it felt like to be 7 and alone. "That's a sad story," I said quietly from the doorway. The little girl's head snapped up. Fear flashed across her face, the kind of fear that children shouldn't know how to feel. Then her expression shifted into something more complicated. Hunger, maybe, or hope. "You're not supposed to be here," she said, but her voice held no authority. Just a statement of fact. "Neither are you, probably." I stepped inside, closing the door softly behind me. "It's late. Don't you have someone to put you to bed?" "Nana did, but she's gone now." The little girl twisted the doll's arm. "Papa is busy. He's always busy." Papa. Dante Marchetti. The man whose house this was, whose name made grown men pale, whose presence I'd felt but never seen in my 3 months of employment. I'd been hired through an agency, processed through security, and given my instructions by the estate manager. I was part of the invisible machinery that kept this place running. I should have left. But the music box was still playing, that slightly broken melody, and the little girl was watching me with those strange gray eyes, and I found myself crossing the room instead. "What's your name?" I asked. "Lucia." She said it, carefully, like she was testing whether I was safe. "What's yours?" "Elena." "Elena," she repeated. Then, unexpectedly, "Do you know how to dance?" The question caught me off guard. A little? Why?" "Nana used to dance with me. Before." Lucia gestured vaguely at her legs, at the wheelchair. "Not really dancing. But she'd move my chair and we'd pretend. She said even if your legs don't work, you can still feel the music." The ache in my chest spread outward. "That's true," I said. "Your grandmother was right." I moved behind her wheelchair and Lucia stiffened. I could feel the tension in her small body, the learned wariness of a child who'd been handled roughly, or not handled at all. "Is it okay if I move your chair?" I asked. "We can dance, like your grandmother did." Lucia nodded. Very small. I began to push her chair in slow circles, following the tinny rhythm of the music box. At first, she sat rigid, uncertain. But gradually, her shoulders relaxed. She lifted her arms like wings. The doll fell forgotten to her lap. "Faster," she whispered. I spun her in wider arcs, careful but free, and Lucia laughed. a sound so bright and unexpected it seemed to light up the vast empty room. We danced until the music box wound down, until the melody stuttered into silence. And that's when I felt it, the change in air pressure that meant we were no longer alone. I stopped moving, my hand still on the handles of Lucia's wheelchair. The little girl had gone very still. Lucia. The voice came from the doorway, deep, controlled, absolutely frigid. What did I tell you about letting strangers into your room? I turned slowly. Dante Marchetti stood in the entrance to his daughter's room, like a portrait of contained violence. He was younger than I'd imagined, maybe 35, and handsome in a way that made you forget to breathe. Dark hair, sharp jaw, expensive suit that fit like a weapon. But it was his eyes that stopped me. Dark brown, almost black, and currently fixed on me with an expression that made my survival instincts scream. This was not a man who tolerated boundary violations. Papa, Lucia said quickly. She was just quiet. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. Go to your room. This is my room. Then stay quiet. Lucia shrank into her wheelchair. Dante Marchetti stepped inside, and every muscle in my body tensed. He moved like a man who understood violence intimately, economically, without wasted motion. When he stopped 3 feet away from me, I could smell his cologne, cedar and something darker, more expensive. You're the new maid, he said. Not a question. Yes, sir. You were told where you're allowed to be in this house? I was. So this is deliberate. My mouth went dry. I thought about lying, about making an excuse, but something in his face told me that would be worse. Your daughter was alone, I said quietly. She's 7 years old, and she was alone in the dark with a music box. I couldn't walk away from that. His expression didn't change. Why not? The question stunned me. How did you explain basic human decency to a man who clearly didn't operate by those rules? Because I remember being 7, I said finally. And I remember what it felt like when no one came. For exactly 3 seconds, something shifted in his face. Something that might have been surprise or recognition or pain. Then it vanished behind the mask of control. Lucia, he said, still looking at me. Did she hurt you? No, Papa. We danced, like Nonna used to. I watched a muscle jump in his jaw. You're dismissed, he said to me. Go back to your quarters. Someone will bring you your termination papers in the morning. The words hit like a physical blow. I needed this job. The pay was extraordinary precisely because working for the Marchetti family came with risks that most people wouldn't accept. But I looked at Lucia's face, at the disappointment there, the resignation, and I realized something had already been decided. Okay, I said softly. Then, to Lucia, it was nice to meet you. I walked toward the door, past Dante Marchetti, who didn't move, didn't step aside. I had to angle my body to slip past him, and for just a moment, we were close enough that I could feel the heat coming off his skin, could see the absolutely terrifying control he was maintaining. Miss Elena, Lucia called out as I reached the door. Will you come back? I glanced at her father. His expression gave me nothing. I don't think so, sweetheart. I walked into the hallway, my hands shaking, my heart pounding. Behind me, I heard Lucia's small voice. Papa, why do you always make them leave? And his response, so quiet I almost missed it. To keep you safe. I made it halfway down the corridor before I realized 2 things. First, Dante Marchetti hadn't actually ordered me out of the house immediately. Just said someone would bring termination papers in the morning. Second, a man in a dark suit was following me, maintaining a careful distance, not escorting me out. Watching me. The weight of his attention felt like a hand between my shoulder blades, a reminder that in this house, nothing happened by accident, and kindness to a lonely child might have consequences I didn't yet understand. I didn't sleep. My quarters. A small room off the service wing with a narrow bed and a window that overlooked the estate's eastern gardens felt different now. Smaller. Like the walls had shifted inward while I wasn't paying attention. I kept replaying the moment in the doorway. The way Dante Marchetti had looked at me. Not with rage exactly, but with something colder. Calculation. Like I was a problem he was already solving in his head. To keep you safe. He'd said it to his daughter, but I'd heard the weight underneath. The history. Whatever had happened to Lucia, whatever had put her in that wheelchair, it lived in those 4 words. At dawn, I dressed in my usual work clothes. Black pants, white shirt, hair pulled back. If I was being terminated, I'd leave with dignity. But when I opened my door, I found a breakfast tray on the floor outside. Coffee, still hot. Toast with butter and jam. A small card in heavy cardstock that read, "Report to the main study at 8 a.m. No signature." I drank the coffee because my hands needed something to hold. The main study was on the 2nd floor, overlooking the front drive. I'd cleaned it twice before. Always early morning, always empty. It was a masculine room. Leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk positioned to face the door. Control. Everything about the space whispered control. Dante Marchetti stood by the window when I entered, his back to me. He wore different clothes, charcoal suit, no tie, but the same carefully maintained stillness. Like movement was something he rationed. "Close the door," he said without turning. I did. "You're not firing me," I said quietly. It wasn't a question. "No." He turned then, and I saw his face in full daylight for the first time. Handsome, yes, but there was something haunted underneath. Exhaustion he wore like a second skin. "I'm moving you." "Moving me where?" "Lucia needs a companion. Someone to stay with her during the day. Read to her. Engage with her." He paused. Dance with her, apparently. The request was so unexpected I almost laughed. "You want to hire me to spend time with your daughter. After firing me for spending time with your daughter. I want to hire you to be what she needs." His voice was flat, but something moved behind his eyes. There's a difference between breaking rules out of carelessness and breaking them because you saw a child alone in the dark. I need to know which one you are. And you've decided? Lucia hasn't smiled like that in 8 months. The admission came out rough, like it cost him something. Not since her grandmother died. Not since... He stopped himself. "You'll be paid triple your current salary. You'll have access to the East Wing. You'll eat meals with Lucia when I'm unavailable. You'll report directly to me about her well-being." I studied his face, looking for the trap. "Why?" "Because she asked for you." He said it simply, but I heard the complexity underneath. "My daughter asks for very little. When she does, I give it to her. Even if it means trusting a stranger? You were vetted before you entered this house. Background check, references, financial history. I know where you grew up, where you went to school, why you needed this job." He crossed to his desk, pulled out a folder and set it down between us. "Elena Rossi, 26, degree in early childhood education, worked at a private preschool in Florence until it closed 6 months ago. Moved to Milan looking for work. No family, no romantic entanglements, no political affiliations, no debt beyond normal student loans." Hearing my life reduced to bullet points made my skin feel too tight. "You know everything about me," I said. "I know nothing about you." "Yes." No apology in his voice. "That's how this works." "What happened to Lucia?" The question hung in the air. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he moved back to the window, putting space between us. Car accident. 11 months ago, my mother was driving. They were coming back from Lucia's ballet recital. His voice went quiet. A rival family decided to send a message. They forced the car off the road. My mother died on impact. Lucia survived with a severed spine. The clinical way he said it made it worse somehow. Like emotion was something he'd locked away, where it couldn't reach him. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. Sorry doesn't change what is. He looked at me then, and I saw the fracture in his control. Just for a second. But Lucia is 7 years old, and she shouldn't have to live in a house where everyone is afraid to look at her. Where everyone treats her like she's already broken. She's not broken. I know that. Almost angry now. But she lives in a world that will always see the wheelchair first. In my world, especially. Weakness is currency. Having a disabled daughter makes me... He stopped, jaw tight. Vulnerable. I understood then. Not just the isolation, but the cage it created. Lucia was being protected so thoroughly she was disappearing. "So you lock her away," I said carefully. "Keep her safe, by keeping her alone." "I keep her alive." The words came out hard. Do you know how many people would use her to get to me? How many would see her as leverage? I know you're her father, not her warden. The silence that followed felt dangerous. Dante Marchetti looked at me like he was deciding something permanent. "You'll start today," he said finally. "Lucia has lessons until noon. You'll join her for lunch and stay until dinner. Learn her routines. Understand what she needs." He pulled a key from his pocket and held it out. "This opens the East Wing. Don't lose it. Don't share it." "And Miss Rossi?" I took the key. It was warm from his hand. "If you ever put my daughter in danger, through carelessness, through stupidity, through kindness that blinds you to threat, I will end you so quietly, no one will ever ask where you went." He said it the way other people said good morning. A simple fact. "Understood," I whispered. He nodded once, dismissing me. I made it to the door before his voice stopped me. "Elena." I turned back. "Thank you," he said, "for seeing her." Then he turned back to the window, and I understood I was gone. Lucia was in the library when I found her. She sat at a small table near the window. A tutor, stern-faced woman in her 50s, reading aloud from a history textbook in a monotone that could have put insomniacs to sleep. Lucia's chin rested in her hand, her eyes unfocused, gazing at something beyond the glass. The tutor looked up when I entered, her expression shifting from annoyance to calculation when she saw the key in my hand. "Miss Rossi," she said, and I wondered how quickly news traveled in this house. "I was told to expect you after the lesson." "I'll wait," I said quietly, taking a seat across the room. But Lucia had already turned, her face transforming when she recognized me. Not quite a smile. She was too careful for that. But something close. Hope. Maybe. Or relief. "Elena," she said, and the tutor's mouth thinned. "We have 20 minutes remaining, Lucia. Pay attention." The little girl's expression shuddered. She turned back to the window, but her hands moved restlessly in her lap, fingers twisting together, then apart. A nervous habit, I realized. Something she did when she was trying to disappear. I watched the tutor drone on about Renaissance trade routes, and watched Lucia retreat further into herself, and I thought about what Dante had said. Everyone treats her like she's already broken. When the lesson finally ended, the tutor gathered her materials with brisk efficiency. She had trouble with the mathematics yesterday, she told me, not Lucia. "You'll want to review that." "I'll keep it in mind," I said evenly. When we were alone, Lucia let out a breath that seemed too big for her small body. "I hate history," she said. "The way she teaches it, I don't blame you." I wheeled her away from the table toward the window. "What do you actually like?" She was quiet for a long moment. Stories. When Nonna told them, not read them. She made them up about princesses who weren't boring. What made them not boring? They fixed things. They didn't just wait in towers. Lucia looked up at me, testing. And sometimes they were mean when they needed to be. I smiled. Your grandmother sounds like she knew what she was doing. Papa says I'm like her, that I have her stubbornness. She said it carefully, like she wasn't sure if it was a compliment. Stubbornness keeps you alive, I said. Trust me. We ate lunch in the conservatory, a glass-walled room filled with plants that someone maintained obsessively. Lucia picked at her pasta, taking tiny bites, and I realized she was nervous. Not of me exactly. Of something. Your father told me I'll be spending afternoons with you, I said. If that's okay with you. He asked you to watch me. Not accusatory. Just resigned. He asked me to be your friend. There's a difference. Lucia set down her fork. People don't want to be my friend. They want to work for Papa. The observation was too knowing for 7 years old, and it hurt to hear. I do work for your father, I said honestly. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here because you were alone in that room, and you asked me to dance, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. Why? Because I know what it's like to be invisible, to live in a house where everyone looks through you instead of at you. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. And I know what it's like when one person finally sees you. It changes everything. Lucia's eyes went bright. Not quite tears, but close. Nonna saw me, she whispered. Before the accident, people looked at me and saw ballet and recitals and pretty dresses. After, they only see the chair. But Nonna still saw me. Then we'll make sure you stay visible, I said. Deal? She nodded slowly. Then, surprising me. Do you think Papa sees me? The question cracked something open in my chest. Because the answer was complicated. Yes and no. And too much. And not enough, all at once. I think he sees you so much it terrifies him, I said carefully. I think he's so afraid of losing you that he's forgotten you're still here. Lucia absorbed this, her expression far too old. He works all the time now. Before, he used to read to me every night. Now he just checks that I'm okay and leaves. People grieve in different ways. I miss Nonna too, she said quietly. But I'm still here. I still need... She stopped, picking up her fork again. Never mind. You still need what, Lucia? I still need my papa. She said it so softly I almost missed it. Not the one who's scared. The one who used to laugh. I was walking Lucia back to her room when Dante appeared at the end of the hallway. He'd loosened his tie, rolled up his sleeves. There was ink on his fingers. He'd been writing something by hand. The small detail felt intimate somehow. A glimpse of the person underneath the armor. How was the afternoon? He asked. Good, Lucia said. But she'd gone tense again. That careful posture, like she was afraid of disappointing him. Did you eat lunch? Most of it. Mathematics review? We didn't get to it yet. I kept my voice neutral. We were getting to know each other. Something flickered across his face. Not disapproval, exactly. More like he didn't quite know how to categorize what I'd just said. Lucia needs structure, he said. Lucia needs conversation, I replied, then immediately regretted my tone. But he didn't snap at me. Instead, he looked at his daughter. Really looked at her. And I saw the moment something shifted. The careful mask slipping just enough to show the exhaustion underneath. Go to your room, Piccola, he said gently. I'll come say goodnight later. Promise? Promise. Lucia wheeled herself away, glancing back once before disappearing around the corner. Dante waited until we were alone. You think I'm failing her? Not a question. I think you're surviving, I said quietly, but she needs more than survival. He studied my face for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, my mother used to say the same thing. The admission hung between us. Fragile, dangerous. She sounds like she knew you well. She did. He looked away. Which is why she'd be furious with me right now. And for the first time since I'd met him, Dante Marchetti smiled. It was small, sad, and gone almost immediately. But I'd seen it. And somehow, that changed everything. 3 weeks passed like a held breath. I fell into rhythms I hadn't expected. Mornings helping Lucia with lessons the tutor assigned. Afternoons, in the conservatory, where she'd tell me elaborate stories about the plants having secret kingdoms. Evenings reading aloud while she drew pictures in the margins of her notebooks. She drew mostly trees, I noticed. Trees with deep roots and branches that reached impossibly high. They can't run away, she explained once, but they still grow toward what they need. I didn't ask what she thought she needed. I was afraid I already knew. Dante remained mostly absent. He'd appear at odd hours, early morning when Lucia was still asleep, late evening when she was already in bed. He'd ask brief questions. Is she eating? Did she seem happy today? Any problems? I'd answer honestly, and he'd nod and disappear again into whatever dark business consumed his days. But I noticed things. The way he'd pause outside Lucia's door sometimes, hand raised to knock, then lower it and walk away. The way his shoulders would drop when I told him she'd laughed that afternoon, like relief was something physical. The way he kept a small photo on his desk. Lucia in a ballet costume, mid-leap, face bright with joy, positioned so he'd see it every time he looked up. He was drowning in guilt, I realized, and he thought distance would keep her safe from whatever darkness he carried. On a Thursday afternoon, everything shifted. Lucia and I were in the music room, a space she'd been avoiding because it held her grandmother's piano. But she'd asked to go there, and I'd learned not to question when she decided to face difficult things. She sat in her wheelchair beside the bench, one hand resting on the keys without pressing down. Nonna tried to teach me, she said quietly. I wasn't very good. I liked dancing better. You can still make music, I said. It doesn't have to be perfect. She pressed a single key. The note hung in the air, pure, lonely. Do you think she's disappointed in me? That I can't do the things I used to? The question gutted me. I think she'd be proud that you're still here. Still trying. Still growing. I crouched beside her wheelchair. Lucia, you survived something that killed your grandmother. That takes a kind of strength most people never have to find. Papa doesn't see it that way. What do you mean? She pressed another key, then another. He thinks I'm fragile now, like I might break if he gets too close. But I'm not. Her voice cracked. I'm not made of glass. Before I could respond, the door opened. Dante stood in the entrance, and I realized he'd heard everything. His face was carefully blank, but his hands were clenched at his sides, the only visible crack in his control. Lucia, he said, your physical therapist is here. I don't want to go. She didn't look at him. It hurts, and it doesn't help. It's not optional. Why? Finally, she turned, and I saw tears on her face. Why do I have to keep trying to fix something that's already broken? The word broken hit him like a physical blow. You're not. He stopped, jaw working. Then, very quietly, you're not broken, Piccola. Then why won't you look at me anymore? Her voice rose, cracking. Why won't you read to me like you used to? Why won't you? A sob cut through. Why won't you be my papa instead of just the man who checks on me? The silence that followed felt like the moment before a bomb detonates. Dante crossed the room in 3 strides, dropped to his knees in front of his daughter's wheelchair, and pulled her into his arms. Lucia went rigid with shock, then collapsed against him, crying in great heaving gasps. "I'm sorry," he said into her hair, his voice breaking. "God, Lucia, I'm so sorry." I stood frozen, watching something fundamental shift between them. I thought if I stayed back, if I didn't let myself. He pulled away just enough to look at her face. "I watched them pull you out of that car. I watched you stop breathing twice in the ambulance. And I realized that everything I am, everything I've built, means nothing if I can't keep you safe." "But you're keeping me away," Lucia whispered. "That's not the same thing." His hands cupped her face, thumbs wiping tears. I know. And I don't know how to." He stopped, looked at me, then back at his daughter. "Tell me how to fix this." "Stop being scared of me." She said it simply. "I'm scared enough for both of us." Something in his expression crumbled. "When did you get so wise?" "Nonna said I had an old soul." Lucia managed a watery smile. "She said it's because I pay attention when people think I'm not listening." Dante laughed, a rough, broken sound, and pulled her close again. I started to slip out, give them privacy, but Dante's voice stopped me. "Elena, stay." It wasn't a request. He kept one arm around Lucia but turned to look at me, and I saw something in his face I hadn't seen before. Not the controlled crime lord, not the grieving father. Something more human, more vulnerable. "Thank you," he said, for giving her back her voice. "I didn't give her anything," I said quietly. "She's always had it. She just needed someone to listen." "Then thank you for listening," he paused, "and for not letting me hide from what I was doing to her." Lucia pulled back, looking between us. "Papa, can Elena stay for dinner? Real dinner, in the dining room?" I expected him to refuse, to maintain those careful boundaries between staff and family. Instead, he said, "Yes, if she wants to." And I realized, looking at the way his hand remained protective on Lucia's shoulder, the way his eyes held mine with something that felt like recognition, that I'd stopped being just the help somewhere along the way. I'd become something more complicated, something dangerous. "I'd like that," I said. Lucia beamed. Dante's expression stayed carefully neutral, but I saw his throat work as he swallowed. 8 o'clock, he said. "Don't be late." And I knew, somehow, that everything was about to change. The dining room was designed for intimidation. 20-foot ceilings, a table that could seat 30. Crystal chandeliers that threw fractured light across walls lined with portraits of stern-faced Marchetti ancestors. But tonight, only 3 places were set, clustered at one end, close enough for actual conversation. I'd changed into the one nice dress I owned. Simple navy blue, nothing remarkable. But when I entered and saw Dante at the head of the table, jacket removed, tie gone, white shirt with the top 2 buttons undone, I felt suddenly, acutely aware of how intimate this was. Lucia sat to his right, already talking animatedly about something that had happened during physical therapy. The tension from earlier had lifted, replaced by something lighter. She looked more like a child, and less like someone carrying impossible weight. Dante looked up when I entered, and something flickered across his face too quickly to name. "Elena," Lucia said, waving me over. "Sit here, next to me." I took the seat between them, hyper-aware of Dante's presence to my left. He poured wine for himself, water for Lucia, then paused over my glass. "Wine?" he asked. "Please." His fingers brushed mine as he handed me the glass. The contact lasted less than a second, but I felt it like an electrical current. Dinner was served by silent staff who appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Lucia monopolized the conversation at first. Stories about her day, questions about mine, observations about the new gardener who'd planted roses outside her window. She was performing a kind of magic, I realized. Creating normalcy through sheer determination. Dante watched her with an expression that made my chest ache. pride and sorrow tangled together. "You're staring, Papa," Lucia said without looking up from her pasta. "Am I? You do that now. Since you started coming back." She said it matter-of-factly. "I don't mind, but Elena might think you're weird." I nearly choked on my wine. Dante's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. "I'll try to be less weird." "Good." Lucia turned to me. "He's actually not weird. He's just very serious. Nonna used to say he was born 40 years old." "Your grandmother said a lot of things," Dante murmured. "She was right about most of them." Lucia's expression went softer. "She said you needed someone who wasn't afraid of you, someone who'd tell you when you were being stupid." The air in the room shifted. "Lucia," Dante's voice held a warning. "She did. Right before the accident. We were in the car and she was talking about how you work too much and never—" She stopped abruptly, seeming to realize she'd ventured into dangerous territory. But Dante didn't shut down. Instead, he set his fork down carefully and looked at his daughter with heartbreaking openness. "What else did she say?" Lucia bit her lip. "That you were lonely, that you built walls so high nobody could climb them, and one day you'd realize you'd locked yourself in a prison." The silence stretched thin. "She wasn't wrong," Dante said finally, and the admission seemed to cost him something. I kept my eyes on my plate, trying to make myself invisible. "Elena's not afraid of you," Lucia announced. "Lucia," I said quickly. "That's not—" "You're not," she insisted. "Everyone else walks on eggshells, even the scary men who work for Papa. But you just talk to him like he's normal." Dante's gaze shifted to me, heavy with something I couldn't name. "Is that true?" I met his eyes, saw the challenge there, the curiosity. "You're a person," I said quietly. "A complicated one, but still a person. I don't see the point in pretending otherwise." "Most people see the complications first. Most people don't know what it's like to be underestimated." I kept my voice even. "To have everyone decide who you are before you open your mouth, so I try not to do that to other people." Something in his expression shifted, softened. "Even when those people are criminals?" The word hung between us. A test. "Even then," I said. "Though I'm choosing to believe you're more complicated than that too." Lucia looked between us, her expression delighted. "See? Not afraid." After dinner, Dante walked Lucia to her room himself, a routine he'd apparently reclaimed. I waited in the hallway, not quite dismissed, but not quite included, until he emerged. "Thank you for dinner," I said. "I should—" "Walk with me." Not a request. We moved through the house in silence, past closed doors and empty rooms, until we reached a terrace overlooking the gardens. The night air was cool, jasmine-scented. Below, the estate spread out like a kingdom of shadows. "My mother used to love this view," Dante said. "She'd stand here and smoke cigarettes she thought nobody knew about." I smiled despite myself. "Lucia has her stubbornness." "Lucia has everything good about her. Everything I—" He stopped, jaw tight. "Everything I didn't manage to ruin. You're trying now. That counts for something." "Does it?" He turned to face me, and in the moonlight his features looked sharper, more vulnerable. "I've spent 11 months building higher walls because I thought that's what protection looked like. And it took a stranger breaking into my daughter's room to show me I was suffocating her." "I'm not a stranger anymore," I said quietly. "No." His eyes held mine. "You're not." The weight of that acknowledgement settled between us. Dangerous. Undeniable. "Elena." My name in his voice sounded different. Careful. "Why did you really stay? After that first night? After I threatened you? Why not just leave?" I thought about lying, about giving him something easy and professional. Instead, I told the truth. Because Lucia asked me to come back, and because I know what it's like to be 7 years old and alone in the dark, and I couldn't let her stay there. I paused. And because when you looked at me in that doorway, you weren't just seeing a problem to solve. You were seeing someone who saw your daughter. That felt important, he finished. Yes. He stepped closer. Not touching, but close enough that I could feel the heat of him. You're making this very complicated, he said softly. What? Keeping appropriate distance. Remembering you work for me. Not. He stopped himself. My pulse hammered. Not what? But he just shook his head, stepping back. It's late, you should rest. I nodded, not trusting my voice. As I walked away, I felt his eyes on me. And I knew, we both knew, that something had shifted irreversibly. The mistake was mine. I'd been with Lucia for 6 weeks when I stopped treating the Marchetti estate like a fortress and started treating it like home. Small things at first, taking shortcuts through hallways I'd been avoiding, lingering in the library after Lucia went to bed, helping myself to coffee from the kitchen at odd hours. I forgot that in Dante's world, comfort was dangerous. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Lucia was napping, something she still needed after physical therapy, and I'd wandered into the conservatory with a book. The glass walls let in golden light, and I'd curled up on the window seat, halfway through a chapter when I heard voices. 2 men, speaking Italian in low, urgent tones. I should have left immediately, should have made myself known. Instead, I froze, and in freezing, became an eavesdropper. Cannot continue like this. The Rossi family is asking questions about the territory agreements. Let them ask. Dante's voice, cold and final. They have no leverage. They have photographs of the shipment last month. If they go to the authorities, they won't. You're certain? A pause. Then, Marco, I'm always certain. The threat in those words made my skin prickle. This was the other Dante, the one who controlled an empire through fear and calculation, the one who'd threatened to end me so quietly no one would ask where I went. I waited until their footsteps faded, then slipped out through a side door, my heart hammering. But Dante was waiting in the hallway. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, expression unreadable. How much did you hear? Lying would insult us both. Enough to know I shouldn't have been there. Yet you were. I was reading. I didn't realize that the conservatory connects to my office. He pushed off the wall, closing the distance between us. Or that in this house, privacy is currency? I didn't mean to intrude. Intention doesn't matter. Information does. He studied my face, looking for something. Fear, maybe. Or calculation. Tell me what you heard. I repeated it word for word. His expression didn't change. And what conclusion did you draw from that conversation? That you have enemies. That you're managing something dangerous. That... I stopped. That I'm exactly what you've been trying not to see, he finished quietly. A criminal. A man who threatens and controls and destroys when necessary. The word destroys hung between us like smoke. Yes, I said, because he deserved honesty. Something shifted in his face. Not anger. Something sadder. And now you're afraid of me. No. The word came out before I could stop it. I'm afraid for Lucia, because whatever war you're fighting, she's already been collateral damage once. His jaw tightened. You think I don't know that? I think you're trying to protect her by controlling everything. But you can't control everything, Dante. Eventually, something will... Don't. The word was sharp. Don't tell me what I can't do. I've built an empire on doing impossible things. And you've lost your mother, and nearly lost your daughter in the process. I kept my voice level, even as my pulse raced. At what point does the cost become too high? For a moment, I thought he might explode. His hands clenched at his sides, his breathing shallow. But when he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Every single day, Elena. Every morning when I wake up and she's still alive. Every night when I check her room and she's still breathing. That's when I know the cost is worth it. The rawness in his admission cracked something open in me. She needs more than survival, I said softly. She needs a life. She has one. A safe one. A small one. I stepped closer, drawn by something I couldn't name. Dante. She's 7 years old. She should be going to school, making friends, experiencing the world. Instead, she's locked in this beautiful prison with tutors and physical therapists and you. His eyes locked on mine. Should I take that away too? Send you off because you're starting to see too much? Starting to ask questions that don't have good answers? The threat should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something else entirely. I think, I said carefully, that you keep me here because Lucia needs me, but also because you're tired of being the only person who carries everything alone. His expression went very still. That's a dangerous thing to say to a man like me. Probably. I didn't look away. But someone needs to say it. The air between us felt charged, heavy with things unspoken. He was close enough now that I could see the exhaustion etched around his eyes, the gray threading through his dark hair at the temples. Close enough that I could smell cedar and something warmer, more human underneath. You should be afraid of me, he said quietly. I know. I've done things that would horrify you. I believe you. Then why? He stopped, searching my face. Why do you look at me like that? Like what? Like I'm not a monster. The question was so vulnerable it hurt to hear. Because monsters don't read bedtime stories to their daughters, I said. They don't keep photographs on their desks. They don't stand outside closed doors with their hand raised to knock, too afraid of being rejected to actually go inside. His breath caught. I see you, Dante. Both versions. The man who protects his family and the man who terrifies his enemies. And I swallowed hard. I think you're exhausted from being both all the time. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then, very slowly, he reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. The gesture was so gentle it made my chest ache. You're making this impossible, he murmured. What? Keeping distance? Remembering boundaries? His thumb brushed my cheekbone, barely touching, pretending you're just the help. My heart was hammering so hard I could barely breathe. What am I then? His eyes held mine, dark, conflicted, burning with something dangerous. I don't know, he said, but it's not that. Then Lucia's voice called from upstairs. Papa? Elena? And the spell broke. Dante stepped back, composure sliding into place like armor. We'll finish this conversation later, he said. But we both knew some things, once started, couldn't be stopped. We didn't finish the conversation. Instead, Dante became a ghost again, present but untouchable. He'd appear for meals with Lucia, ask his careful questions about her day, then disappear into his office, or leave the estate entirely. When our eyes met across rooms, something electric passed between us, but he never let it become more than a glance. I told myself it was better this way. Safer. I was lying. Lucia noticed, of course. Children always do. Did you and Papa have a fight? She asked one afternoon. We were in the gardens, her wheelchair navigating the smooth stone paths between rose bushes. No? Why? He gets quiet after he talks to you now. Like he's thinking about something that makes him sad. She picked a petal that had fallen onto her lap. He used to get quiet like that after Nonna died. I don't want him to go away again. The fear in her voice made my throat tight. He's not going away, sweetheart. He's just... I struggled for words that wouldn't be a lie. He's just trying to figure some things out. Grown-up things? Yeah. Grown-ups make everything complicated. She said it with such world-weariness I almost laughed. Nona used to say that love is simple. It's people who make it hard. I stopped walking. Did she say that a lot? All the time, especially when Papa would work too much or forget to eat or... Lucia paused, looking up at me with those two knowing eyes. Elena, do you like my papa? The question was a landmine. Of course I do. He's been very kind to... Not like that. She waved her hand impatiently. I mean, do you like him? The way people like each other in stories. My face went hot. Lucia, that's not... I work for your father. It's not appropriate for me to... That's a yes. She looked delighted. I knew it. You get all pink when he comes in the room. I do not. You do. And he watches you when he thinks nobody's looking. Like you're a puzzle he's trying to solve. She grinned. It's very romantic. It's very complicated, I corrected. And you shouldn't be matchmaking. Why not? You make Papa less scary. And you make me less lonely. If you were both mine, we'd be a real family. The innocent hope in her voice broke something in me. Lucia, I knelt beside her wheelchair. Your father and I, we're not... It's not that simple? Why not? Because he's a criminal. Because I overheard things I shouldn't have. Because every time we're in the same room, I feel like I'm standing at the edge of a cliff, and I don't know if falling would be freedom or destruction. Because sometimes wanting something doesn't make it possible, I said finally. Lucia looked at me with an expression far older than 7. Nonna said the only impossible things are the ones we're too afraid to reach for. That evening, everything changed. I was in my room when I heard raised voices, Dante and someone else, arguments spilling through walls meant to contain secrets. Then footsteps, running, shouts. Something was wrong. I found Lucia's door open, her room empty. Panic flooded through me. Lucia, I called, checking the bathroom, the closet. Nothing. I ran into the hallway and nearly collided with Dante. His face was ashen. Where is she? His voice was deadly calm, the kind of calm that precedes violence. I don't know. I thought she was in her room. The security system was disabled. Someone got into the house. He grabbed my arm, not rough, but urgent. Think. Did she say anything today? Anything about wanting to go somewhere? My mind raced. The music room. She mentioned wanting to play piano again, to try, even if it hurt. We ran. The music room was dark except for moonlight streaming through tall windows. And there, at the piano bench, sat Lucia in her wheelchair, both hands resting on the keys. But she wasn't alone. A man stood behind her, mid-30s, expensive suit, gun pressed casually against the side of her head. He smiled when we entered. Dante? Finally. He spoke Italian, his accent northern. I was beginning to think you didn't care about the little broken bird after all. Every muscle in Dante's body went still. When he spoke, his voice was empty of emotion. Tomas, this is between us. Is it? Tomas pressed the gun harder against Lucia's temple. She whimpered. See, I don't think so. I think you need to be reminded that actions have consequences, that taking what belongs to my family costs something. Let her go. Take me instead. Where's the lesson in that? Tomas's eyes slid to me. Or perhaps the pretty little maid? I hear she's become quite important to you. Both of you. Dante's hand moved toward his jacket, toward where I knew he kept a gun, but Thomas shook his head. Slowly. Or I redecorate this lovely room with your daughter's brain. Lucia's eyes found mine across the dark space, terrified, pleading, and something in me snapped. She's just a child, I said, stepping forward. Dante's hand shot out to stop me, but I shook him off. Whatever war you're fighting, she's not a soldier. She's 7 years old and she's already survived more than any child should have to. Elena, Dante's warning was sharp, but I kept moving, slowly, hands visible. I heard Dante on the phone last week. I lied, the fiction forming as I spoke. About the Rossi territories, about how they're planning to move against you. He has names, locations, everything you need. Tomas's expression shifted, interest warring with suspicion. You're lying. Maybe. Or maybe I'm the person nobody pays attention to. The maid who cleans offices and overhears conversations. I was close enough now to see Lucia's tears. Let her go, and I'll tell you everything I know. I'll even testify if you need me to. But please, she can't hurt you. She can't hurt anyone. Elena, stop. Dante's voice was raw with something that sounded like fear, but Tomas was considering it. I could see the calculation in his eyes. You'd betray him? Just like that? I'd do anything, I said, and meant it, to keep that little girl alive. For 3 heartbeats, nobody moved. Then Tomas smiled and shifted the gun toward me instead. The gunshot was deafening. But the pain I expected never came. Instead, I watched Tomas's expression shift from triumph to shock as his body jerked forward. The gun clattered from his hand. Behind him, Dante's security chief, Marco, lowered his weapon, his face grim. Everything happened in seconds. Marco dragged Tomas's body away from Lucia. 2 more men appeared from the shadows, moving with efficient brutality. Dante crossed the room in 3 strides, dropping to his knees in front of his daughter's wheelchair. Are you hurt? His hands moved over her carefully, checking for injuries. Lucia. Look at me. Are you hurt? She shook her head, trembling violently, and launched herself into his arms. He caught her, lifting her from the wheelchair, holding her against his chest like she was 5 instead of 7. Like he could absorb her terror through sheer proximity. I stood frozen, watching blood pool across marble floors, watching Dante rock his daughter and whisper things I couldn't hear. Marco approached me. Miss Rossi, you should come with me. My voice came out broken. Is she? She's safe now, but you need to leave this room. Strong hands guided me into the hallway. I heard orders being given in rapid Italian. Cleaning, disposal, cover story. The machinery of violence hiding itself. Someone gave me water. I didn't drink it. Time passed strangely. Minutes or hours, I couldn't tell. When Dante finally emerged, his shirt was stained with his daughter's tears. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Something between fury and devastation. My office, he said. Now. He closed the door behind us and poured himself whiskey with hands that shook slightly. Drank it in 1 swallow. Poured another. That was the stupidest, most reckless. He stopped, jaw working. You could have died. But I didn't. Because Marco was already in position, because I'd had the house under surveillance since the security breach. He slammed the glass down. Not because of your heroic sacrifice. Lucia was terrified. And you thought throwing yourself in front of a gun would help? His voice rose. You thought making yourself a target would solve anything? It distracted him long enough for your men to... It almost got you killed. The words came out raw. Do you understand that? Do you understand what I would have... He stopped, turning away. The silence was suffocating. What you would have done? I asked quietly. Burned the entire city down. He said it simply. Every family who had ever threatened mine, every ally of Tomas's, every person who had ever thought they could touch what's mine and walk away. The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, it made something in my chest crack open. I'm not yours, I said. He turned, and the look in his eyes stopped my breath. Aren't you? The question hung between us. Dangerous, Inevitable. Dante, you stood between a gun and my daughter. You offered yourself up like your life meant nothing. He crossed the room slowly, deliberately. So tell me, Elena, if you're not mine, why would you do that? Because I care about Lucia. Because she's a child who's already lost too much. That's not all of it. He was close enough now that I could see the fear still etched in his features, the adrenaline making his movements sharp. Tell me the truth. My heart hammered. What do you want me to say? That you did it for both of us. His voice dropped. That somewhere in the last 2 months, this stopped being a job and became something else. Something you can't name but feel every time we're in the same room. I couldn't breathe. That would be complicated, dangerous, completely inappropriate. He reached up, fingers ghosting along my jaw. Say it anyway. I can't. Why not? Because you're my employer. Because you're a criminal. Because my voice broke. Because if I say it out loud, it becomes real, and I don't know how to survive what happens next. His thumb traced my lower lip, barely touching. What if I told you I don't know either? Then we'd both be lost. We already are. His forehead touched mine, and I felt him trembling. Elena, I have spent 11 months building walls, keeping everyone at arm's length, telling myself that control meant safety. And then you walked into my daughter's room and danced with her. And every wall I'd built started crumbling. Dante, I'm terrified of you. The admission came out broken. Of what you make me feel. Of how much I want. He stopped, breathing hard. Of how much I want to keep you here. Safe. Close. Mine. That's not love, I whispered. That's possession. I know. His hands framed my face. But I don't know how to do this any other way. I don't know how to care about someone without trying to control every variable, without turning into exactly what my father was. A man who loved so fiercely he suffocated everything he touched. The vulnerability in his voice made tears sting my eyes. So teach me. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. Show me how to do this without destroying it, without destroying you. I should have said no, should have stepped back, drawn boundaries, remembered all the reasons this was impossible. Instead, I kissed him. It was gentle at first, tentative, testing, but then his control shattered. He kissed me like I was oxygen, like he'd been drowning and finally broke the surface. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer, and I melted against him, feeling the desperate edge of his need matching my own. When we finally broke apart, we were both shaking. This is a mistake, I breathed against his mouth. Probably. His lips found my throat, and I gasped. But I'm tired of making the right choices if it means being alone. What about Lucia? He pulled back, eyes dark and conflicted. She asked me yesterday if you were going to stay forever. I didn't know how to answer her. What do you want the answer to be? He looked at me like I held his entire world in my hands. Stay, he said simply. Not as the help. Not as Lucia's companion. Just stay. And God help me. I wanted to. Okay, I whispered. His kiss this time was softer, a promise instead of desperation. Outside, dawn was breaking, and everything had changed. I woke in Dante's bed with sunlight streaming through windows I'd never seen before. For a moment, disorientation. Then memory flooded back. The kiss, his hands in my hair, the way he'd pulled me close and whispered my name like a prayer. We'd fallen asleep, tangled together on the sofa in his office, exhausted by fear and relief and the weight of finally admitting what had been building between us. Someone had carried me here. The bedroom was masculine, spare, dark wood furniture, slate gray walls, a single photograph on the nightstand. Lucia as an infant, cradled in her grandmother's arms, both of them laughing. I found my shoes by the door, my dress only slightly wrinkled. When I opened the door, Marco stood in the hallway. Miss Rossi. His expression was carefully neutral. Mr. Marchetti asked me to tell you he's with Lucia. Breakfast will be ready when you are. Thank you. I paused. Marco. Last night. Tomas. Has been handled. His voice was flat. The police found his body in the industrial district. Apparent gang violence. Nothing connects him to this estate. The casual efficiency of it made my stomach turn. And his family? We'll receive a message. There won't be retaliation. Marco's eyes held mine. You saved the boss's daughter. That matters in our world. More than you might understand. I found them in the conservatory. Lucia sat in her wheelchair beside the small table where we usually had lunch, drawing in her notebook. Dante stood by the windows, phone to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian. When he saw me, his expression shifted, something warm breaking through the professional mask. He ended the call. Elena? My name in his voice sounded different now. How did you sleep? I don't remember falling asleep. You collapsed around 3 a.m. I wasn't going to wake you. He moved closer, and Lucia looked up, grinning. Papa carried you upstairs like in the movies, she announced. It was very romantic. Heat flooded my face. Lucia. It's okay. Papa told me this morning. She set down her pencil. He said you're not just my companion anymore, that you're... She looked at her father, suddenly shy. What did you say? Dante crouched beside her wheelchair, and I saw tenderness in his face that made my chest ache. I said that Elena is someone very important to both of us. Someone who's become part of our family. He glanced at me. If she wants to be. Lucia's eyes went wide. Like a real family? With dinners together and... She stopped, hope warring with fear. You're not going to leave, are you? Like everyone else? The question gutted me. I crossed the room, knelt in front of her. I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart. I promise. But what if something bad happens again? What if someone tries to hurt Papa or you or... Her voice cracked. Everyone I love goes away. Dante's hand found his daughter's shoulder. Lucia, look at me. He waited until she did. What happened last night will never happen again. I've made sure of it. The people who wanted to hurt us are gone. The house is safe. You are safe. You can't promise that. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Nonna was supposed to be safe, and she died anyway. The words hit him visibly. I watched him struggle for a response, watched the guilt and grief cross his face. You're right, he said finally. I can't promise nothing bad will ever happen. But I can promise I will do everything in my power to protect you, and Elena, and this. He gestured between the three of us. Whatever this is, we're building together. A family, Lucia whispered. Yes. He pulled her into his arms and she wrapped herself around him. A family. I stood there watching them, feeling the magnitude of what I'd stepped into. This wasn't just falling for someone. It was inheriting their entire world. The danger, the complications, the grief they carried like stones. When Lucia finally pulled back, she looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. Elena, are you going to marry Papa? I choked on air. Dante looked equally stunned. Lucia, that's not... We've only just... I struggled for words, but she was looking between us with such hope, such desperate need for permanence, that my carefully prepared deflection died in my throat. I don't know what's going to happen, I said honestly, but I know I care about both of you more than I thought possible. And I know I'm not going anywhere. That's good enough, Lucia decided. Then, pragmatically, but if you do get married, can I be the flower girl? I can do it from my chair. I already figured it out. Dante made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. After breakfast, Lucia went for her physical therapy session. Dante and I stood on the terrace, coffee cups in hand, watching morning light paint the gardens gold. "She's resilient," I said quietly. "She shouldn't have to be." His voice was rough. "She's 7 years old. She should be worried about dolls and friends and what dress to wear, not about whether the people she loves will survive the day." "But that's the world she lives in. The world you've built." He flinched. "I know. I'm not judging you, Dante. I'm just—" I searched for words. "I'm trying to understand what I'm stepping into. What this means." He set down his coffee, turned to face me fully. "It means you'll always have a target on your back. It means there will be nights I can't tell you where I'm going or what I'm doing. It means living with the knowledge that the man you—" He stopped. "That the man you're with has done things that would horrify you." "Has killed people," I said. Not a question. "Yes. Will kill again if necessary." "Yes." I absorbed this, feeling the weight of it. "To protect Lucia. And you." His eyes held mine. "Anyone who threatens what's mine." The possessiveness should have repelled me. Instead, it felt like safety. "I grew up in a children's home," I said quietly. "After my parents died. I was 8. And I learned that the world is dangerous whether you're in a crime family or not. That bad things happen to good people. That safety is an illusion we tell ourselves so we can sleep at night." "Elena." "So I'm not naive, Dante. I know what I'm choosing. And I'm choosing it anyway." I stepped closer. "I'm choosing you. Both of you." He pulled me against him, buried his face in my hair. "I don't deserve you," he murmured. "Probably not." I felt him smile against my temple. "But you're stuck with me anyway." "Good." His arms tightened. "Because I'm never letting you go." And standing there in the morning light, wrapped in the arms of a dangerous man who'd somehow become my home, I believed him. 3 months later, I stood in the music room watching Lucia play piano. Her hands moved carefully across the keys, halting, imperfect, but determined. She'd been practicing every day since the night Tomas held a gun to her head in this same room. At first, I'd worried the space would traumatize her. Instead, she'd insisted on reclaiming it. "Nana wouldn't want me to be afraid of the piano," she'd said. "She'd want me to make it mine." So we'd rearranged the furniture, brought in brighter curtains, filled vases with flowers from the garden. The blood was long gone, scrubbed away by professionals, but we'd covered the spot anyway with a beautiful rug Lucia had picked out herself, cream-colored, woven with roses. Now she finished her song, something simple her new tutor had taught her, and looked up at me with pride. "Better?" "Much better." I crossed to her, kissed the top of her head. "Your grandmother would be so proud." "I think she is." Lucia said it matter-of-factly. "Sometimes I feel her here. Like she's listening." I believed her. Some presences were too strong to fully disappear. The door opened and Dante entered, still in his work clothes, suit jacket over one arm, tie loosened. He looked tired but softer somehow. The perpetual tension in his shoulders had eased over the past months. Not gone. It would never be fully gone. But manageable. "How's my pianist?" he asked. "Getting better." Lucia beamed at him. "Elena says I have natural rhythm." "You have your grandmother's hands." He set his jacket aside, moved to stand behind her wheelchair. "She used to play for me when I was young, before everything became complicated." It was the most he'd ever said about his childhood. Lucia and I both went quiet, letting him continue if he wanted. "She'd play while I did homework, said music helped people think." His hand rested on Lucia's shoulder. "I'd forgotten that. Forgotten a lot of things, actually. Until—" He didn't finish, but his eyes found mine. "Until you," the look said. "Papa," Lucia said carefully. "Are you going to ask Elena now?" My heart stopped. Ask me what? Dante's expression shifted, nervous, uncertain in a way I'd never seen. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. The world tilted. I had a whole speech planned, he said, moving toward me. Something eloquent about how you changed everything, how you gave me back my daughter and taught me how to be human again. But Lucia said I should just be honest. Nonna always said honesty is faster, Lucia added helpfully. Dante smiled, then looked at me with devastating openness. Elena, these past 3 months have been the first time in over a year that I've remembered what happiness feels like. Not just survival, not just getting through each day, actual happiness. My eyes were already burning with tears. You walk into a room and Lucia lights up. You challenge me when I'm being unreasonable. You make this enormous, empty house feel like a home. He opened the box. Inside, a simple gold band with a single diamond. Elegant, understated, perfect. I know this is fast. I know we're still learning each other. But I also know I don't want to spend another day pretending you're temporary. Papa's trying to ask if you'll marry him, Lucia stage whispered. In case that wasn't clear. I laughed through tears. I understood. Dante dropped to one knee. This powerful, dangerous man making himself vulnerable in front of his daughter and the woman he loved. Elena Rossi, will you marry me? I thought about the girl I'd been 3 months ago. Alone, unemployed, desperate for any work that would pay rent. I thought about walking into this fortress and finding a lonely little girl who needed someone to see her. I thought about falling in love with both of them, despite every logical reason not to. Yes, I whispered. Yes, absolutely yes. He stood, hands shaking slightly as he slid the ring onto my finger. Then he kissed me, gentle, reverent, full of promise. Lucia cheered. Finally, now we can plan the wedding. Can I be the flower girl? And can we have cake? And can... Yes to all of it, Dante said, pulling back just enough to look at me. Whatever you both want. That evening, after Lucia was asleep, Dante and I sat on the terrace under stars. Are you scared? I asked quietly. Terrified. He pulled me closer. Of failing you. Of pulling you into darkness you don't deserve. Of... He stopped. Of losing this. Losing you. You won't. You can't promise that. Neither can you. I turned to face him. Dante, we can't control everything. Bad things might happen. The world you live in is dangerous. But trying to prevent every possible hurt by building walls just means living in a beautiful prison. I know. He touched my face. You've taught me that. Both of you. Lucia's doing well, I said. Have you noticed? She smiles more, asks for things. She's starting to trust that good things can stay. Because you stayed. His voice went rough. You stayed when everyone else would have run. I stayed because I love you, both of you. The words came easier now. And because this, complicated, messy, dangerous as it is where I belong. He kissed me slowly, thoroughly, like he was memorizing the moment. When we finally went inside, the house felt different, not empty anymore, not a fortress. Just a home where a little girl slept peacefully, where a man who'd forgotten how to hope was learning again, where a woman who'd thought she'd always be alone had found her family. In the morning, Lucia would ask 1,000 questions about the wedding. Marco would probably run background checks on potential caterers. The world outside would keep turning with all its dangers and complications. But here, in this moment, we were just 3 people who'd found each other in the darkness and decided to build something bright. And that was enough. That was everything.